Shalom, Pastor Yoshi.
Shalom, brother.
Long time no see.
Yeah, last week is a long ass time.
Yeah. And shalom to everybody who is watching.
Shalom, people.
This is so funny. I was just thinking about this because I realized I was looking at the channel and like the videos we posted, and I had
Right.
put, long story short, before I get into like a 30-minute tangent and that takes up all of the airtime,
Yep.
I accidentally labeled last episode 30. It was actually episode 29.
Oh,
So this is actually episode 30. So
can we just put this as the 29th?
I I guess in theory, but then I already said it, so now and then it's gonna be like
I mean, you're the editor. You can do whatever the hell you want.
that's true. But I already uploaded it, so it's already there. So like
Yeah, gotcha.
we got like 10 million people who watch. So then
Right.
they're all gonna notice it and make fun of us, and
You're
it won't
bullies.
get canceled or something. Canceled before we even start.
You're gonna find us at the airport, going to our conference in Rome with the other podcasts, and you're gonna beat us up.
Yeah, yeah. There'll be I lost what I was gonna say. It was probably something dumb. Um, how's your week, man?
Man, my week's been crazy.
Yeah,
I've been trying my way around some tools, doing some fixings, some fixes here and there, trying to install a few things in the house. I put a door up today, as I was telling you before in the
yeah,
background.
yeah,
So I'm feeling very masculine,
yeah.
very male.
You're
Uh,
in your masculine energy.
yeah, I am. Not that I am without it in the rest of my week, but like today
You're
was a
embracing
special
it.
day
You're
because
like
the door worked like precisely as it was intended. It's
no
kind of a
squeaks.
rustic, yeah, no squeaks. It's kind of a rustic design if you put it like that, because the
Yeah,
jigsaw, I was not being able to work that sucker as I should, but I never used that. I mean, I used it before, but like very little.
yeah,
Um, and the things are happening in the spiritual growth aspect of things as well. I've been
man.
teaching on Monday nights a very interesting topic, at least for my hand,
Yeah,
for my head. And people seem to be learning something. I don't really care if they enjoy it, just as long as they learn something.
yeah,
And part of the week is teaching, is learning before I can teach. So it's been a nice. There, those last 3 years have been treating me well. Let's put it that way.
oh man.
And yours, how's everything?
Good, bro. Same old, same old. Not as maybe as exciting. I didn't put any doors in. You know what I mean? But I've
I
been doing
enjoy
the
it.
little Bible study on
How's
Monday
that going?
nights. Really well, really, really well. And we started after, or I started after your thing ends, and
Right.
it's been really good. It's a couple friends of mine that I've known for a while. One of them very close to, grew up with him basically, and um, kind of just came out of the blue. Like I've always kind of wanted to do it, but I'm a very like I don't know if it's good or bad, but I'm a very passive. Maybe passive isn't the right word. I'm a very
Pondering person.
pondering, and I'm a very go with the flow.
Mm-hmm.
So personally, I'm not one to like like you have believers that like they embody um how's it go? You shall write the what is it? We say it every Shabbat. I don't know why I'm blanking. You shall write on your
Shema.
doorpost, and you shall
Oh, teach my words diligently to your children and
children, and
speak
speak
of
of them
them.
when you walk by the way, when you retire, when you rise. You shall write them on the
Yeah.
doorpost of your house, upon your gates, and shall be frontlets between your eyes. Okay, so on and so forth, and they embody that every day. Like there's people that'll be like, "Hey, how you doing?" Or you like walk by somebody like, "Hey, what time is it?" Ah, it's time for Yahusha.
Right.
Did you know that you have a savior, Yahusha? That's a beautiful thing. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But me, I'm more based on personality or whatever,
I
bro.
think I think it has. I think there is something wrong with that, because Yahushua was very clear. Don't cast your pearls before swine.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
technically, not everybody. Not that they're not worthy, but they are not. Sometimes people are not ready to receive them.
yeah. Well, it's like it's being wise with investing your time,
Yeah, precisely.
right? And I don't know if I would personally say there's anything wrong with that because you never like sometimes it's like the idea. It's like you cast a wide net, you're gonna catch something. Like it's a balance, right? Just like with
Yeah,
everything.
it's
Let your
balance. Yeah.
moderation be known unto all men. it's like you don't want to say nothing because then you evangelize nobody. And then like if you are just every person you meet, it's like, well, maybe the time you spent, if you're more wise with who dedicate that time to, you're gonna get more out of it.
Right.
So to me, like with my like my friends and stuff like that, specifically these, is like I've always very subtly planted seeds, kind of bring things. I've always been very open and honest about my faith. I've always been like, oh, why can't you come hang out on like Shabbat on Saturday? Oh, it's Shabbat. I got to do this, this, and this. And so they already know like these certain things I do.
Right.
So, but I always make myself present. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not gonna like drag you, but I'm here. And like, if that conversation never arises, like I'm there to have it.
Right.
And so, for example, this particular friend I've known since I was a kid, played football together, high school, and everything. And I lived with him for like basically a brother. Like we spent too much time together, probably. You know
Right.
what I mean? Growing up, and we've had conversations here and there, but there was definitely like I could, knowing him, I knew I always felt like there's gonna come a time where he was gonna start asking questions.
Right.
He was gonna start getting that hunger, and I never pushed. I never did anything. I'd share anything if the conversation came up. I'd share whatever I felt was appropriate. And then, long story short, because I mean, I'm a yapper, so I just start going. I just start going. Um, a few weeks ago, I was talking to him, and I had jokingly mentioned like a Bible study, and he's like, "Oh yeah, we should do that." And yeah, at first I was kind of joking, but then before we finished talking, I was like, "Hey, if you're serious, like, let me know. Like, we can set some time, and like we'll start reading together." And he's like, "Yeah, yeah." So then I've had another friend who I've had a few conversations with, and we've been doing it every Monday night for the past maybe 4 weeks, 5 weeks, something like since you started the class.
Right. 4 weeks, I guess.
Yeah, it kind of like was literally coincidentally the same time, and that's the
Nice.
best time we could arrange. And yeah, we've been reading through the Gospels and just me sharing as much as I know.
Are
And
you doing like the parashot system, or are you doing you're like in your own sequence?
yeah, I want to see. We're just going straight through the Gospels. We're in Matthew. We're gonna go through all those, and then from there on, kind of get a temperature check, and see what the Ruach says we should read next. But
Right.
it's been really good conversations, very curious, very involved. I feel like sometimes if you ever talk to people or try to share the gospel with somebody, you can just tell when someone's just like trying to get the conversation over with.
Right.
But it's really good, and I think it's very promising. And I think in
Both.
time, yeah, willing, he'll he'll call in Yahusha, and he'll. But he's definitely in those like beginning stages. You know what I mean?
Right.
And like the last conversation we had last Monday, I was telling him how there's like everybody's different, and some people like they right off the bat they get that like revelation that Yahusha is Yahusha. This is what you
That
need to do
oomph.
right off the bat. And for some people to like me, I started reading scripture. I started asking questions. I got to communicate with but it took a few months before I actually felt like that conviction.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't like I remember when I started reading the gospel for the first time, I was reading it. I was like, okay, this is interesting. I'm interested. I feel like excuse me, I feel like there's something here, but I
Right.
wasn't like convinced, I would say. I was like still kind of like, I don't know. But I stuck with it and I kept reading and I kept, eventually I got, contact with Shaliach and he was able to answer a lot of my questions. And maybe like 4 or 5 months into it, maybe 6, I finally I had that switch went off, the epiphany,
Right.
the revelation hit, and I was like, oh, this is this is it.
Right.
And that's when I could say I truly believed on the word of Yahuwah.
I think my click was when I watched the teaching on two houses on by Elder Yahusef here, a gentleman that is an Nazarene Israelite here in Brazil. A lot of people came to Yati through him, by the way, me
Yeah,
included.
yeah, yeah,
So his work is very powerful, has been very like influential in the conversion and the discipleship of a lot of people.
yeah,
So I started by his studies, and when I was already reading scripture, I was already like reading the scriptures, trying my best to to follow the teachings, because Sholech's teachings are very advanced sometimes. But like, I always asked questions and I never gave up in terms of like, it's hard. I'm not understanding anything, but I know that if I stick with this thing,
Right.
it feels like I'm gonna get somewhere.
Yeah.
So I cannot give up. But when once I watched that, it was like a 3 hour teaching, like very detailed with PowerPoint slides and whatever. The scriptures was like, and I understood.
Yeah.
I remember having the moment. I
Yeah.
remember that. So to me, it was not that it was like instant, but it was not
Right.
over a too long period of time.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I guess it depends how you look at it, because if you look at it as in something like the first time I ever, like I said, we talked about this before, right? I didn't grow up in the church. I didn't grow up as a
Right.
regular attendee of, Christianity, much less reading the Bible or anything relating to Yahusha. But I had interactions. You know what I'm saying? Like I did go to church before. I
Right.
went to a couple church camps, and you could argue that like that was really like it took really there was like the time where I consciously started trying to seek and seek diligently. And
Right. Me
that's when I was
too.
like 22, 23. But if you could really make the argument that like, no, when you're a kid and you have those encounters, even though you don't understand, even though you don't care, like there's seeds being planted then.
Right.
And it's way more than like it may have been 10, 15 years of like slowly over time, you being prepared.
Over
And it's
time
like,
development.
right. Because not everybody's going to be saved at the same time. It's not like a
Right.
group. Everybody passes or fails at the final exam. It's like, no, everybody's exam is individually. And some people don't get saved till they're 50, 60, 70. You know what I mean? Some people, when they're a kid, you're blessed to be born into a family that is an Israelite family, Torah observant, Torah honoring. They understand. They
Right.
see it from the perspective we see it, right? Which is this Hebraic lens and this Hebraic understanding with this culture, and the commandments are still for today, and the Shabbat still is important. And you're raised in that and you stick to it throughout your whole life, which is amazing. But for a lot of people, it's not. And like, I have a lot of people, I have friends that I grew up with. We're the same age, and but I may get saved way younger, or I may have been saved way later than them. And it's like everybody has
Right.
their lane. And Yahusha has a way that he deals with us,
Deals with us.
deals with us. That's embarrassing. That's so embarrassing. Don't laugh at me. My wife's laughing. Deals with us, and I lost my train. That threw me off. He deals with it. He handles us
Right.
differently. I don't know why it's such a tongue twister. He handles us differently, and I feel like there's always, even though everybody's a different walk. Obviously, I think the process is the same. It's just a different period of time. Everybody
Right.
grows at a different rate. Everybody matures at a different rate. And I guess the point I'm trying to get across is, you know, you want to be patient with, I guess, the aspect of evangelism, because I feel like what I've always thought about evangelism in the past, it's always been like, and I'm not saying there's nothing to it. It's like for sure there's a place of it, but it's always been like I've always thought of like street preaching, like going and trying to hand out pamphlets and doing all these things, and there's an aspect of that is beneficial and important. But I think too, like, and evangelist David Cologne from Remnant House mentioned this when he came to visit here in Jacksonville, is you know really true evangelism is a relationship,
Right.
and it's not just like we have a conversation, you profess Yahusha with me here on the street corner, and then you disappear off into the wilderness and I never see you again. It's like I feel like that's not really productive, and I could be wrong, but I feel like the best is like you have a relationship with somebody, and I feel like in that case, once you get saved, if you have friends that are unsaved, obviously using an immense amount of wisdom, because you don't want to be in a situation where you're around the wrong people and they
It's a
pull you
tricky
back.
ground for
It's
sure.
very tricky, but it's the best way, because if you know how to balance that and you know how to discern and use wisdom, that you don't get pulled into things, like those may be the most productive fruit, because you have a relationship, it's like a double-edged sword, you know what I mean? It can be
Right.
really really detrimental, but it can also be, if you wield it properly, it can be very beneficial. And when
Right.
you have if you have friends that you've had for years upon years, there's a level of, if they're good friends, you they may not have the same faith, but they're even in the place that they are in their life, they're still good people, and their limited understanding when it
And they
comes
don't try to put like a barrier between your faith and them.
right, exactly, and they're still good people. They want to be the best people they can be. You know what I mean? They just obviously aren't orientated properly when it comes from a scriptural lens. So that's where you can step in and be there, not be dragged down, but be like a checkpoint, in their
Right.
progress. Like, you're still ahead because you're in your walk and you're growing and you're progressing. But you are careful that if they're doing things that are going to pull you away from Yahuah, that you're not engaging with that. If they're people who go to the bars on Saturday, or they're going to strip clubs, maybe you really need to keep yourself at a major distance. But it's like Yahusha said, it's like, they asked him, why do you go to the Samaritans? Why do you go amongst the tax collectors, the thieves? It's like, because the people, they need the Messiah.
Right.
You guys already have Yahusha. They need Yahusha.
And it
That
is as
doesn't
you
mean,
said, like in the finish your point, please. So you don't
it's
finish.
not like Yahusha said, yeah, I'm gonna go to these thieves and these tax collectors and go be thieves and tax collectors with them.
Yeah.
No, I'm going there with a purpose. I'm there to be, in my case, right, I'm there to be a friend to them. Because
Right.
some people, they don't have anybody in their life that can be a light. You know what I mean? And maybe if
Right.
you're their only friend that's saved, it's like you may be the only light.
Yep.
And
It is as it is written in the, as we were talking about before, the Shema. Like when you look into it thoroughly, you teach the words, but you teach them how. By when you sit down, when you wake up, when you go lay
right,
down, like
right,
you teach more through your actions and living this thing rather than your words. The words are important, but that's
yeah,
only one aspect of it. So
yeah,
I agree with you 100%. Like they need to have some exposure, but at the very same time, we being the expositors need to be very careful not to be sucked into it or not to be like relating ourselves with things that are of the past. And
for sure.
I think I said that in my testimony, and I'm 100% with you. But the reason why I don't do it is because I realized that I was being pulled back. This
Right,
is why I don't do
right.
it. And I don't know if I'm not strong enough or if just the company is definitely not profitable
Yeah,
because they would ridicule like my faith and the times that I tried sharing the stuff
for
of the
sure,
scripture. So I just what I mean, let Yahuwah deal with them. I'll pray for them in the
for
meantime,
sure,
and if the door is open, I'm here.
for sure. And that's where I think discernment and wisdom comes in, because, like, let's give you an extreme example. If you grew up in the ghetto, you're from the streets, and all the people you associated with before you were saved were drug dealers, womanizers, pimps,
Horse,
burglars, whores, whatever it is, and the only thing that they do is those activities, then it's like, yeah, you probably shouldn't spend. You need to find new friends.
right?
But if you came out of the church, right, and they're quote unquote good Christians. They go to church every Sunday. They're not over here stealing. They're married to to their wife, and they're faithful, and they just don't understand the Hebraic perspective. Then if whenever you guys go to hang out, it's going to play mini golf. It's like there's not a problem with that, because you guys are. It's not like they're like saying, "Hey, it's Sunday. Do you want to go to the strip club?" No, like that's definitely something. But if they're like, "Hey, it's Sunday, we want to go bowling with some guys. You want to come with?" It's like, yeah, why not?
Yep.
Because they're not doing activities that are negative. They just don't understand.
Right.
And the point I guess I'm trying to make is, when getting back to evangelism, it's like definitely having a relationship is the best form of evangelism, because I think part of being an evangelist, and I'm speaking maybe out of turn here because I'm not a, even though we're all called to be evangelists or evangelize,
For a little bit.
obviously not everybody holds that official office, but the point being is that in that process of evangelizing, there is also a degree of like, you're responsible for that person you're evangelizing, because if you're reading scripture together and they have no exposure to scripture, you're in essence teaching them.
Right.
It's like, look, this is what the word says. Like, don't be led astray by false teachers. Like, because look, you'll go over here and they're going to teach you that it's okay to break the Shabbat. But it's like, if we go here to the Torah where it says the fourth commandment, the Torah, the Shabbat is set apart.
Right.
And it's one of the, you guys like to preach the 10 commandments is one of the 10 commandments. You know what I mean? And I hope I'm making sense because I feel like I'm all over the place.
Yeah, you are.
But the point I'm trying to say is when it comes to evangelism, relationship is definitely the best way to approach it, because especially if you have good friends who, are trying their best with their limited understanding, you have a level of trust there.
Right.
And they can, when you're trying to explain something from the heart, they know that you're not just trying to like sell them some false bag of goods. They know that if they've seen your growth and they've seen, okay, they know, especially if they know your whole life, right? And they know you used to be going out to the clubs every weekend, drinking like an animal, sleeping with every woman you see, sleeping with every guy you see, sleeping with whatever it you see. You know what I mean?
Right.
And they saw that like how your life is now, where you stop doing those things.
Yeah.
You're going to Shabbat, you're studying the scriptures, you're living it, not just speaking about it, but you're living it.
Right.
Then it's like, okay, this guy I can listen to. I feel like you're gonna have a higher chance of them taking what you say seriously and taking it to heart. And I feel like that's what's happening at least now with a couple of my friends. It's like, I think that obviously not being perfect, but I've done my best over the course of the past 5-6 years to learn, to grow, to mature in my faith. And now I'm in a position where it's like I can start trying to help those around me who want the help.
Right.
I mean, it's like, because my friend came up to me and said, yeah, I've been having these questions and I'm going through these things and I'm trying to understand and da 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 da, whatever. And I can say like, oh, I've been there too. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, you can be there to encourage them. You can be there to say like,
Yeah.
look. That's what I was telling my friend last question we have. It's like, pray, but like if you don't get an answer the first night, don't stress about it. It may take some time because Yahuah is preparing you, and your preparation may take longer than someone else.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because Yahuah is going to come in the proper season, and right now you're in a season of being prepared, of your heart being softened, the soil is being softened, so you can be prepared for the season to receive.
Yeah. And I believe, to add on what you're saying, I believe that also works as the first step to the congregation.
Mm-hmm.
And why do I say that? There's a possible candidate for the congregation here in Campinas. He visited a few times, and he's feeling kind of dislocated because the content is very advanced.
Right.
And I'm not gonna say this that he has an excuse because it is advanced, because we had the same thing. It was still advanced for us, and I think for I don't know if for I think it was a little bit more advanced for me because I didn't come from any religion, so I didn't know what to expect. It was kind of okay, this Bible stuff, I guess. But my point is like not to excuse, but not everybody is not I don't want to say able, but like not everybody is willing to stick it out until it makes sense.
Right.
So I think this type of Bible study with your friends, with your family, as long as all the criteria that you established before are met, which I am 100% agreement with, because they are scriptural, not because it's Nehemiah speaking, because he is speaking the word. But like I think those are incredible preparatory courses for them
Right.
to stick it out afterwards, because now they have the basis. And also, I think it serves as a filtering process as well.
Of
Not
course.
only an invitation, but like, are you going to stick it out? Show me. If you can stick it out, if you can't stick it out with the Bible study for like a year, I mean, you're not congregation material, because there is like way deeper commitment. You know what I'm saying?
Of course.
People are expecting your presence and whatnot. So
The requirement
I
is much
think,
higher.
yeah, and the requirements is the same for everybody. So if you are willing to be there, no excuses are going to be made for you just because you're new.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you're expected to you're not expected you are expected to conform to the congregation, not the other way around.
Of
So
course.
I think those Bible studies are immensely important to like start people to ease them in, so to speak,
Yeah.
in the faith and in the things that they're going to encounter in the congregation.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially when it comes to this walk, because like you said, and like we spoke about numerous times, like it's a very heavy, it's like a meaty table. You know what I mean? It's like imagine if you just showed up for you've never read the Bible. You know what I mean? You've never been to a Bible study. You've never even been in a church. You've never been anything regarding Yahusha, the scriptures, whatever. And the first Shabbat you show up to, is 3 Shabbats ago
Right.
at Goshen. Like, bro, you're coming in here. We're talking about we're completely changing the narrative of the end times, understanding it differently. We're digging into scripture. You're hearing a bunch of a foreign language you've never heard before. Like, what is Layla? What is Lila? What is Yahusha? I thought his name
Yeah.
was Jesus. You know what I mean? And it's just
Right.
it can be very overwhelming.
Right.
And like you said, not making excuses. And I think there's a difference between making excuses or accepting someone's excuses and understanding and um, understanding them and understanding the process. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Not everybody has the same path.
Right. Because to use myself as an example, um, when I first started reading scripture, I was reading the Gospels, and arguably the Gospels, obviously they're very deep, but compared to something like the Book of Isaiah, filled with
Yeah.
prophecy and parable
And
and
symbolism.
symbolism, the Gospels are much more straightforward and much more easy to understand, especially at least the main message is trying to get that it's getting across.
Right.
And when I first started, it's like, did I attend every single Shabbat service? Did I never miss a meeting? Personally, I can't say that. But imagine if my
I
spiritual,
didn't. It gave me severe headaches for 2 years, but I was there.
like, and that's my point, right? So we got two examples right here, you and me. The point being is I did miss some services. I wasn't as disciplined as I should have been, or even I could have been. But in the grand scheme of things, I got better over time, and I stayed at it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so back to what I was saying. Taking example of me is um, everybody's. I mean, we said a million times, but everybody's walk is different,
Right.
and some people's walk in the beginning are shakier than others because maybe you have a higher amount of leaven that you need to get rid of. Maybe you're facing much more intense battles than others may be facing. Maybe your intense battles are going to be front loaded
Right.
in your walk, and someone else's intense battles are going to be in the middle. I mean, look, you're going to have intense battles throughout your entire walk, but I'm saying the thickness or the density of the amount of things you have to overcome may be different or maybe way more intense in the very beginning. You know what I mean? If you're coming from, if you used to be a meth addict, had a
Right.
problem with picking up prostitutes, or a drug dealer and we're robbing banks, your beginning walk is going to be a lot tougher than someone who was born in the suburbs and like their biggest problem is, not showing up to Shabbat.
Right.
Are they both important? Of course. You
Of
know what I
course
mean?
they are.
But my saying is one person may be facing much more intense struggles, and even if even from the outside, it may not look like, oh, like, dude, I had to deal with like a million worse things. But it's like the saying goes: the worst thing that ever happened to you is still the worst thing that ever happened to you.
Yeah, and it's not never, as you said, never to compare, because
Mhm.
if I were in your shoes, maybe I wouldn't be able to deal with your problems that in my shoes sound weaker.
Right,
So
right,
never to compare. Everybody has a different path.
exactly. And so all that to say, I guess that's what the importance of a relationship is, because when you have a relationship with somebody and you're trying to do your best to plant the seeds, to sow, to water, to fertilize, and you're willing to eventually sow those seeds or sow the harvest, reap the harvest, not sow the harvest, but reap the harvest. When you have a relationship with somebody, you can tell, okay, is this person making excuses for the sake of making excuses and they really just don't want to be here? Or is this person, they do want to be here, but they're just facing certain struggles. And I understand why it is that they're having difficulties right now. And that's not the same as allowing their excuses to be an excuse. It's just saying, I just know where you're at. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, I know this person wants to be, I know this person wants to be the best disciple they can be, but they're just struggling.
Right.
And
But
no one's
like, then to ask you a question, and please give me your best answer. I have my point of view, but I want to hear like your thoughts on it. So let's say we are dealing with with a person X with the difficulty X. Where is the line between understanding and endorsing excuses? When is the
yeah,
line that you say, okay, I understand, but you still need to do it? Like, how would you interpret it? And you
yeah,
can illustrate if you have any case in mind.
yeah. I think we go to Yahusha's words, right? By their fruits you shall know them.
Hmm.
So that's a good, I think, starting point. So Okay, is this somebody? Okay, let's say you got 52 Shabbats in a year, and let's say you've been reading scripture with them, you've been studying scripture with them, um, and they're getting to the point now where it's like, okay, you need to start understanding the Shabbat. You need to start understanding that, like, look, the Shabbat is a commandment. It did not go away. When you read the Torah, it does not say you're going to keep, you know, 6 days shall you labor and do all your work. The seventh day is a Shabbat. In it you shall
And
do no
Yahuah,
work.
yeah.
And it's like, so you need to understand this. It doesn't say do all that until Yahusha returns. Okay. And you're trying to get that point across and trying to disciple that aspect or teach them that principle. And, you know, they come to Shabbats, but then they start missing, but they start coming back. I think people will show you who they are. I don't think a lot of it is rocket science. And I think if you have the spirit within you, right, you have the ability to discern. I think if you have other elders, you have apostles, you have pastors, you have other elders that you can run to get their insight, who are your spiritual leaders, and you're relaying that information to them. Like, look, this person hasn't been showing up, or they're not doing this. It's like, do you think this person is still taking this serious, or do you think they're still wasting your time?
Right.
And you also, and this is where relationship comes into play, because when you just do, for example, something like street evangelism, which again, I'm not minimizing it. I want to make that very clear. I'm not saying there's nothing to it and that you shouldn't do it, and that there's nothing of value that can come to that. But like I said earlier, right? You're on the street, you're handing out pamphlets, you're trying to get people saved. They do a prayer with you, and they disappear, and you never see them again. You have no idea if you never saw them again because they don't want to be seen again. If they didn't get kidnapped, by the Russian government.
They died.
You know what I mean? If they got hit by a car, God forbid, not to be like morbid or extreme about it, but my point being is you don't know. But when you have a
Right.
relationship with them, let's say I'm talking to somebody, I'm evangelizing, or I'm sharing the good news, I'm hosting a Bible study, and this doesn't pertain to anybody because they may watch the episode. I'm not talking about them specifically, but let's say there's someone who joins a Bible study and they're reading with us, and they're growing with us, and they live at home with their parents, and their parents are really controlling, really abusive. Um, they have a lot of control over their life, even if they're an adult. They have their finances, whatever. And they start missing some of the Bible studies because their parents don't want them to do it. They're like, hey, this is a Muslim household, this is a atheist household, this is a Christian household. You're not going to get involved in any of these things. And they miss some meetings. It's like, this is where communication comes into play. You have to speak with the person and have a conversation. And it's like, hey, I notice, not in a pushy way where it's like, look, I'm gonna beat you over the head with a rock if you don't show up. But it's like, hey man, you said you were interested. You said these questions. You said you wanted to learn about Yahusha. You said you wanted to start understanding. The only way you're going to do that is by making yourself present. So you've missed a few meetings. It's like, is there something going on? Is there something that I can help you try to work through? Is there something that's preventing you, or do you just not want to do it anymore? You know what I'm saying? And getting that communication. And if that person is openly, voluntarily having that conversation with you, is like, look, man, it's just hard because my parents and they're putting a lot of pressure on me. It's like, okay, now you have somebody who's willing and is you can discern that they genuinely want to. They're seeking, they're searching, and they're diligently, but there's obstacles in their life that are making it harder for them to present themselves. Now, can we argue that there shouldn't be any obstacle that prevents you from coming to Yahushua? Of course, but we also live in real life. I mean, we're still human beings, and nobody's going to be perfect. So then the question becomes, okay, where do you draw the line? And it's like, if you're pulling all the weight, you know what I mean? Then that's where you draw the line. If if it's only take from Nehemiah, take from Yoshi, you know what I mean? They always want your help, but they're not willing to implement anything. They're not willing to find another way. You know what I mean? There's a wall here. And they're like, hey, there's a wall. There's no way to do it. There's, my parents are this, my parents are that. It's just too much. It's like, okay, you can't help somebody that doesn't want help. But if they're like, look, hey, Yoshi, there's this challenge here. I don't know what to do. I'm tired of it. I want to get through it. I just want to serve Yahusha. This, and this. It's like, okay, you have someone who's showing up for themselves. You know what I'm saying? And not just expecting someone to just pull them out of their mess. It's like, no, I want to dig myself out of this mess, but I just don't have the tools, or I don't know how,
Right.
or I don't have another alternative. Can you help me figure something out? Can you give me some counseling? Can you point me to, if you can't give me counseling, can you point me to somebody who can?
Right.
And I guess I said all that to say, it's one of those things where it's like you can't give a blanket statement because every case is individual by nature. Everybody has an individual life with individual experiences, individual struggles, and
Right.
you kind of have to take it as a case by case basis. And you have to rely a lot on the ruach to discern.
Right.
And but I think a good rule of thumb is this person showing up for themselves? Are they showing up for Yahusha, or is it you always having to be the one to uh, be there for them? Or are you always the one that has to remind them about Yahusha? Hey, this, and this. Does that make sense?
It does. I have a different point of view in a few things, not everything, but in a few things, because as you said, like everybody's mission and everybody's walk is different. My walk was more pressurized, let's put it that way. So I think I was being prepared for something that was more high intensity in terms of like you have to obey, and this is why you don't have any excuses anymore. Like, everything in my testimony, the pain, the struggle of translating and everything, and I couldn't miss because of people in Brazil were counting, not because I'm special, because Yahuah asked me to do that, and I couldn't say no once I said yes. So my idea of that answer, and I agree with you, like it's a case by case basis, but as you said, the word of Yahuah kind of gives us some pretty good precedent, and Yahusha said some very strong words to hear. First of all, like, who is your mother, father, brother, and everything else? Those that listen to the word of Yahuah and do it. And that may be very hard to listen and practice once you are in the beginning, the very beginning of your
For
faith,
sure.
as it was difficult for me to listen and to kind of, digest that sentence, because it sounds like, man, it sounds too harsh. Sounds
Right.
like extremism.
Right.
But at the very same time, Yahusha said to that guy that said, "Can I follow you?" Oh, yeah, sure. But can I just bury my father first? Let the bury the dead. That's also very hard. And then you have the blood versus blood thing. Whose blood you're going to choose?
Of course.
So, like, I think I would draw the line once it starts breaking scripture. Like the excuses are going against the word. Because like, oh, but I'm having a very tough time because like my parents are sick and whatever, and I need to take care of them. Okay, I understand that, but bring your parents too. I don't see a problem if you can do that. But at the very same time, you need to work on your spiritual growth. So I agree 100% when you say like the discernment for the person counseling is paramount. And if we have the ruach, we technically are supposed to discern these things. But as you said, and I just got to compliment, once the excuses start breaking up the scriptural principles, I think that's where I would draw the line. And I'm learning this as I go, being a pastor. Like I have to give some corrections from time to time, and it's not a clear cut answer. There are no cookie cutter
Right.
answers. Like you need to discern at that point, at that moment, in that time, in that situation. But I think if we just go by the scriptures, I don't think we have a way. I don't think we have a wrong possibility.
For sure. And I think it just keeps going back to relationship. And it's like
Yeah.
when you have a relationship with that individual, you're able to make the best decision for that individual
Right.
in terms of
Yeah, you're gonna know if they are like just
right,
messing
right.
with you or if they're truly sincere.
And of course, look, you always have the biblical principle of wolves in sheep's clothing, right? That's always the
Right.
case. But more often than not, or I don't know if I can say more often than not, but I think within reason, you can measure, you can discern. Like, is this person serious? Are they struggling with something? Or are they not? And it also depends about length of time, right? If you have somebody who's been in the faith for 10 years, they're now in the congregation, they're in the kehillah, right? They're in the congregation, they're part of that spiritual family. You're going to treat them very differently than someone who's like 1 day old,
Right.
because the expectation of this person who's 10 years old is much different than the person who's
Yeah.
barely just understood what that the word Yahusha even exists,
Right.
or excuse me,
Yeah.
what Yahusha even is.
And I don't
It's
want
like
to be misinterpreted. Like I had grace when I started, so I'm not trying to paint a
right,
picture like
right.
of authoritative like command and you cannot miss a meeting. I don't care if you're saved yesterday. No, I had grace too. It's just that like after that period, my life was like do it, and that helped me grow a lot. But again, that's my walk. not necessarily is going to adapt to everybody
Of
else.
course. Yeah. And look, I think when you're trying to share the gospel, if you're in a position where you're trying to sow seeds, you're having a Bible study, whether you're pastor and evangelist, or even if you have, you know, you don't have a specific office that you've been anointed or you've been placed in. It's like if you're, because even, look, for example, even if you're not in the office of a pastor, you don't have an official kahila. It's like, to a degree, just like maybe you're not an evangelist, but everybody's called to evangelize.
Yeah.
To a degree, everybody's called to be a pastor. Like if you're a husband and you have a wife, you have children, you're the
Yeah,
pastor of your home.
sure. If you
You
have a
understand what I'm
Bible
saying?
study at home, I mean,
Exactly. So, in a degree or in a way, you are enacting in that you don't hold that office, but you're carrying out the principles and the responsibilities of the office in a more, maybe a more micro way than in terms of being like, okay, I have a congregation, I have 30 different families, and we all, have to do this and that. So it's like you're dealing with people. It's like you have to know your people. Again, it's going to keep going back to that word relationship
yeah,
and understanding that you deal with people differently. Like we spoke about this before. I'm more of like, I want to hear what I'm doing wrong. And like, I want correction. It's like, if you
yeah,
see me doing something wrong, you don't got to sugarcoat it. You don't got to like, beat around the bush. Just tell me like, Nebia, this is what scripture says. This is what you're doing wrong. You need to correct it. All right. I got to get on it. I got to get on it and start working on correcting this. Other people, you have to have more, like you said, lead with a little more grace. But it's a careful balancing act, because you don't want to be so much grace that then you forego the scriptures that you
and you
say, like,
and you
and
stunt
you
their growth.
right, you end up in a weird church where you have like a trans preacher who's a lesbian, and they're telling everybody that it's okay to be gay because the Bible says it's okay. Because that's too far. That's too
Yeah,
much grace. Now we're in La La Land from a scriptural perspective.
Disneyland.
Exactly. So it's like everything always comes back to balance, right? Comes back to relationship. It comes to balance. These biblical principles, because and you don't want to be so extreme that you shut everybody out, and you end up like the Pharisees, placing a yoke upon people's heads that they can't bear,
Right,
right? That because look, at the end of the day, no one's going to be 100% perfect. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to stumble, and you're not going to execute perfectly at every single instant. It's just not possible. So
right,
there has to be a degree of grace, but there still has to be a degree of expectation and rigidity, because yes, it's true. Yahusha did say, "Let the dead bury their dead." Like there is no, at the end of the day, there is no excuse. But at the end of the day, at the same time, while that is true, there's another truth, which is we're human,
right,
and there's a reason Yahusha came to sacrifice himself, so that because he knew we are human and we knew we did need grace,
right,
but grace. It's like, I think we mentioned this before. Right? I think I've said this. It's like grace isn't this like easy button on your desk that you just get to spam all day. You know what I mean? That you just get to hit every single moment of the day when you mess up.
it is a privilege
Right.
for one when if and when you make a mistake, you have that
Right.
relief button because Yahusha said, now okay, understood. Now go and sin no more, my child, because
Right.
you're actually trying not to, but unfortunately you slipped.
Yeah. Because I think, part of a definition of growth in this walk is you're relying on that button less and less. You know what I
Right,
mean? In the beginning, you miss Shabbat, you need that grace. But if you're 10, 15 years in your walk and you're missing Shabbat every other Shabbat, it's like there's a problem here. And
right,
you do need more of a firmer, fatherly figure to be like, look, you got to
right.
stop making excuses, bro. You need that tough love.
And also, excuses are not because of circumstances. Like, for instance, the beginning of your walk, of our walk, is supposed to be hard. It's supposed to kind of like filter you and see if you're up to par with this, if you're going to accept the reward, but you need to pay the price for that. So the beginning of the walk is kind of tricky for me. Talking about myself, like to give advice to people is kind of hard because like it's supposed to be hard, man. I don't know what you want me to tell you. Like it's supposed to be difficult. It's supposed to hurt physically, mentally, emotionally, even financially if that's your God. Like it's supposed to hurt.
Right.
But like if the person is, for instance, this guy that is like visiting us, he is coming from another city. So like I cannot expect him to come for the Monday night classes because he gets home midnight and he's
Right.
driving a motorcycle like intercity. So
Right.
I can give him the grace, but like I cannot give him the grace of Shabbat.
Right.
because he has a motorcycle, so I don't see the problem. Oh,
Right.
but it is far, right? But I had to walk to translate 8 kilometers, like every
Right.
single Shabbat. So it's supposed to be hard. Again, as you were saying, like it's a balancing act, and it comes to a relationship, but also to the exposure, the amount of exposure that the person gives you. Like, and if and are they submitted? Are they not? Can we see this? Can we see like actual proof of that?
Right.
Because if they're not submitted, whatever it is that we say goes one year, comes out the other. So
Right.
it's not going to
Right.
make any difference anyway.
100%. And it's also too setting an expectation, like, and not to speak on that example because I don't know the details, and it's not my business or my place. But the point I'm saying in that specific example was like, yeah, it would make sense Monday to say like, look, I understand. This is not to say it's a valid excuse, but it's a reasonable conclusion to
It
come to.
makes sense.
Exactly. On Shabbat, it's like, yeah, we have to set a hard boundary here that Shabbat. But the point is also too, it's like, but we do need to be working towards a point. There needs to be progress made to a point where it's like you are here on Mondays, and
Right.
maybe that requires you to move here. You know what I'm saying? And the point
Right.
is being is like, okay, you're not meeting the expectation you are now, where you're at, where you should be right now. But is there a plan in place to get you up to that expectation?
Can
And
you
are you
grow?
actually taking the steps?
Right.
Right? It's like with any, it's like, I'll give you an example in terms of management, right? I have a guy that works for me, and let's say he's not doing the task to the quality that needs to do it that is acceptable for the company standard, right? Could I fire this person off the bat? Sure.
No.
Well,
I mean, you could, but
I
it
could.
wouldn't
I'm
be.
saying, right? In theory, you can just fire this person at the
Right. Right.
first sign of a mistake.
Gotcha. I understood your question now.
And maybe there may be certain people who that is the best thing to do. It's like this person is just a complete, they have no desire, they're stealing from the company. It's like some things you just have to wash your hands clean and say, you got to go work somewhere else. You know what I mean?
Right.
Or if it's someone who's like, look, they're new, this is a new position for them, they've never been here before, then let's set a plan in place that they can work themselves up to that standard. And then what am I going to do when I set that plan in place? I'm going to sit back and I'm going to monitor. Okay. In 2 weeks, I want to see this much improvement. So what do you do for those 2 weeks? You sit back and you watch. Is there progress being made in those 2 weeks until that improvement?
Right.
Yes. Okay, good. Now you've reached this. Now let's raise the standard again. Okay, now I need you to move. You're always giving incremental steps so that they can progress. Now, if you lay out that 2 week plan, and in those 2 weeks they haven't put no effort into improving the situation. Okay, now we got to have a conversation of, I think it's going to be best for you to move on.
Right.
Or it's like, look, I'm gonna give you another chance here to put in another. I'm gonna give you another 2 weeks to figure this out. But it's like, but the point, and another thing too is you have to also follow through with your word, because you can't be someone that is just walked all over.
Right.
I mean, you can't say, I'm gonna give you these 2 weeks, they don't do it. Okay, I'm gonna have some grace. I'm gonna show you. I'm gonna give you another 2 weeks. They still don't do it. And you say, okay, I'm gonna give you another 2 weeks, but I'm gonna fire you if you don't do it. Then 2 weeks go by and they still don't do nothing. All right, guess what? I'm be nice. No, at some point you gotta draw a line in the sand. It's like, look,
Put your foot down.
I need you to be here. If you're not, you're gonna have to go to a different. You have to find a different employer. Okay, now
Yeah.
let's replace it with the congregation. This is the expectation. I need you to be here in this amount of time, or this is the progress I need to see. And they don't reach it. It's like, okay, look, I can take you to water. I can't make you drink.
We tried it,
So
but
we tried.
apparently
So
it
you're
didn't
gonna have
work.
to find somewhere else. But I'll tell you what, if you have a change of heart, because sometimes you gotta get kicked out. You have to be removed for a bit, and then you realize your ways. You're like, hey, you come back, show your fruit of repentance. Be like, look, I realized where I went wrong. Like, I'm willing to kind of pick back up where we left off and get it going. And I think that's the thing too, is always leaving that door open within reason. Obviously, like,
Yeah, and you need to be guided by the Ruach as well. Because
of
as a
course,
general rule, and I never kicked I never kicked anybody out yet, but I've seen examples, and I
for
was
sure,
used as a tool to make the intercession.
for sure,
And sometimes, more than likely, you never take anybody back as a general rule.
right,
But as you said, like with the proportions placed,
of course,
every situation is a situation, and we cannot paint everybody with a broad brush.
of course. And I think that's the key, and it's not the key, not to hurt poor Rogers. Guy's been getting beat. We haven't beat him in a few episodes. I guess we gave him a break, but the point being, it's relationship, discernment, and balance, right? And I think those are some pretty core principles. Those are some pretty solid
Tenants.
fundamental tenets, principles to adhere by. And you don't want to be too much grace where you just let people walk all over you. They disrespect the word. There's no order. It's all just chaos. And you don't want to have so much rigidity to where it turns tyrannical, to the point where you're like the Pharisees. Like I said earlier, you're like the Pharisees, and nobody can hold the standard. You see what I'm saying? And you don't want to treat everybody the same because everybody's in the same. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so it's just I think it's maintaining that balance, having expectations. You need to meet these expectations. If you're not meeting them, why are you not meeting them? Can we do things to get you to that place? If we can't, okay, then we need to have that conversation of maybe this isn't the place for you, or maybe this isn't the time for you. You
Right.
know what I'm saying? Maybe you still need to be in the wilderness a little longer and eat with the pigs to understand the true value of what's here. And sometimes there's going to be cases where it's a completely lost cause. And you just got to let it go. And like you said, they never come back.
Right.
And, that's where it just comes down to relationship, having a
Relationship.
relationship with people and understanding each individual. And hopefully, God willing, you have the Ruach and you have that anointing where you can discern properly and make the best decisions possible. And
Being completely honest, to me, is very hard to take excuses. It's very, very, very hard, regardless of what they are. If you have something to work with, I don't see the reason. And like if you truly want this walk, don't give me excuses. Just try it. Just do it. Don't
yeah,
even tell me what you're gonna do. Just show up.
yeah,
And I say this because like it comes from my upbringing as well. Not only because of my spiritual walk so far, but like my upbringing. I was brought up by a very strict father, and he didn't have any like he was a non-nonsense type of person, and it was hard like to have excuses with him because he didn't show any excuses. So it was very hard for me to like
of course.
out of a sudden he was like an elderly gentleman. Now out of a sudden I'm here like showing excuses. I'm young, and he's in his 60s like doing everything. So like it's hard for me to take excuses. And normally I try not to give excuses. I'm not gonna say never, because sometimes like I'm just can't do something. Sometimes it happens. I'm a human being, but it's hard. I try to lead by example. I believe you too. Um, so that kind of makes it tough for me to just look at you and accept whatever BS you're saying to me, because even if it is a genuine thing, the first thing that I hear is not the reasoning. The first thing that I hear is I don't want to do it, and this is why.
Yeah,
So like I'm learning through it. I'm maturing slowly but surely, but it's tough for me. It's tough because I think my mission that Yahuah is training me to achieve is a tough mission in terms of like resistance and resilience. So I don't think I could be giving him excuses if I want to grow in that path. And so far it has been proven correct, but again, this is my walk. So this is like the main goal of the channel, like a servant's path. So my path has been like this so far. It's hard to get excuses, but I'm understanding the balance slowly but surely. And this is a thing that you only learn hands on. You can study whatever you want, but you need to practice it. And I'm pretty excited that I have this opportunity of practicing pastorship and how to handle people, how to deal with them, how to grow in aspects like this one. It's being very like encouraging to see that the walk has levels and I have something to strive for and something to achieve. It's very nice for me. It's like a gamification of the walk, so to speak.
of course, of course. So yeah, so all that. Where were we in the beginning? Because I feel like I was.
I don't know. I don't even think that was the main topic.
It kind of became the main topic, but it
Yeah.
all ties in together.
Yeah.
Um, I guess I was talking about the Bible study and
Yeah. You
um,
were mentioning the Bible study.
how it's really enjoyable. I guess getting back to that, or to wrap up that aspect of it, is has been really enjoyable, and it's like it's truly the most, like the podcast. Now that I've been doing this little Bible study, it's like it's like the, and not that I didn't realize this before, but it's like, I guess, putting, once you actually are in that position to be serving Yahuwah in a direct way, and it, because I feel like in the beginning of my walk, a lot of what me serving with Yahuwah was a benefit just to myself. It's like
Right.
I need to get myself to a specific place. And I'm always going to have to get myself to a specific place because the standard is always going to keep increasing as you grow.
Right.
But getting to a point now where it's like I've learned some stuff and now I can start sharing that with others. I feel confident in sharing that with others. You know, that's very beneficial, and it's really feeling like the fulfilling effect of like doing these things, like doing the podcast and having the Bible study, and having this conversation, and seeing people seeing, like, for example, my friend be interested in it. It's fulfilling. It's like
Right.
it's something you're starting to see gears moving. You're starting to see things clicking
It's
for
an
them.
accomplishment.
Yeah, and it's like, whoa, like this is freaking sick. You know what I mean? And I'll give you an example. Like, he messaged me during the week, and he's like, "Hey, I found this Bible in the garage, and I was comparing it to your because we were reading Matthew 5 or something like that,
Right.
and it was basically the verse that says, those who do." I'm paraphrasing, but those who do least in the kingdom and teach men to do so,
They shall
but
be
those who don't teach my commandments and teach men not to do so shall be least in the kingdom.
right.
But those who do my commandments and teach men to do so also will be great in the kingdom. And I was explaining the significance of that verse, and basically saying, like, well, what commandments is he talking about, like, and so on. And speaking of that, long story short, he finds another version of NIV, KJV, I don't know what it was, and
Right.
he explained to me how he said he got curious and he wanted to look into and see what this version said.
Right.
And that version just did a complete, like, butchering of it, and completely removes the aspect of, like,
The
it
importance of
basically
it.
said, as long as you do more than the Pharisees do, you shall be in the kingdom of heaven.
Right.
And that's like a terrible translation because it completely removes the importance of the commandments and understanding that there is those who are going to be greater in the kingdom and those who are going to be least in the kingdom. And they're
Right.
both in the kingdom, which is a blessing, but there is still a ranking. And because why? Because it's more palpable to the masses to say that as long as you do more than the Pharisees, you'll be in the kingdom of heaven.
It is
And
easier to understand it to perform.
right, and perform, and it's a lot harder to accept the fact that, oh, like, there's like standards, and I need to work my way. I have to put in effort. I have to disciple myself even more.
Right.
I need to learn more. I need to study more. I need to strengthen my relationship more. I can't just like show up and, like, just do like a little bit better than the Pharisees, which is a really low standard. Like, the standard, the Pharisaicals, the standard of the Pharisees does not get you into heaven at all.
Just don't steal from widows and orphans.
You know what I mean? So
You're
it's
good to
like
go.
it's a very important principle. But but him noticing that, him going, taking his own time, not during just the study, but on his own time, and him making that analysis and seeing that is like it's fulfilling because it's like, okay, there's things we planted. He's doing things on his own. It's not just like the only time he's thinking about it or wrestling with it is just on this 2 hour and a half, 2 hours on a Monday night.
Right.
It's like, no, he's taking his walk in his own hands, and he's taking steps where he's starting to look into it for himself and not just relying on a 2 hour study.
And it is
Which,
interesting that he brought up the interest too.
mm-hmm,
Like, it's a genuine sign. Very nice.
yep, and that's a strong indicator that that's someone that you can invest your time into.
Right.
You know what I mean? As
The
opposed to
guy that I
someone,
was mentioning before is something like that too. Like, he showed the interest. He said, "Can I visit? Like, can you help me? Like, this is something, as you said, it's fulfilling.
yeah,
It makes you smile."
yeah, yeah, and that's the difference between someone who's proactively, that's someone who's seeking diligently, and like Shaleg has gave the example of time, people who are just shopping. It's like, oh, let me just see, what they got going on here. All right, let me see what this place has going on. And there's no
Very.
real desire to want to plant yourself, you know?
Right.
So,
I think the most important thing, and I'm starting to understand the relationship aspect of like evangelism. I'm not an evangelist per se, but as we said, like, we all are called to evangelize to a certain extent. And I've been learning like the importance of like getting to know the person and not giving up at the first bad sign. Like in the case with my friends, my former friends, like it feels not that it's a lost cause. Nobody's a lost cause to Yahuah, but it feels like I didn't have an opening. So
right,
this is why, like, and it felt like I wouldn't have an opening for a long time,
right,
like years. And I was not. not that I was not strong enough, but the environment was more bad than good
Right.
for me. Like too much curse words, too much talking about like prostitution and OnlyFans girls. That's prostitution, regardless how you slice it. That's prostitution,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
the talk would be only about that, and games that don't profit you nothing in life. Like gaming is nice, but once you game like 6 hours of your day, there must be something wrong if you're doing every day of the week. It must
Yeah.
be something wrong.
No,
So
for
like
sure.
the
For sure.
conversations were never profitable, and I never had an opening to talk about the scriptures. And once I did, I was always received with like constant debate and ridicule. So like that shows to me that I don't have an open door here.
Yeah,
I never closed any door like, hey, I'm not talking to you anymore. But I don't be like trying to persuade them. I believe Yahuah has to do that job because he's the door. He has to
of course.
convince us. We don't
Yeah.
have power to convince ourselves to go to the gym every month,
Right.
every day. So
Right.
like I'm treading carefully in that aspect. Actually, I'm sitting down outside the door and I'm waiting for somebody to come through because like I tried it, but it didn't work in that situation. But it's a relationship type of thing.
For sure.
I'm understanding it better now.
No, of course. And that's, I think that's the key. And that aspect too just goes down to discernment. It's like we were speaking about earlier in the conversation. What's You have to be very careful about which friends you decide to keep
So,
maintain a relationship with, because look, the reality is, when you start to walk, when you start growing, there's going to be people you got to cut off entirely,
yeah,
because not that there is no hope for them, but it may just very well be that you have no role to play in that.
right.
And since you have no role, the chances of them pulling you away is greater.
Yep.
And that's a risk you don't want to take. So yeah, there's going to be people that you have to completely shut out and be like, I can't engage, I can't spend time with, I can't participate. And there's going to be people who you can. But even the people you can, you still have to be careful.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because you can never let your guard down.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And
And
you have to be,
you can never be like swayed just because you have a relationship with a person. Like you need to keep your standards.
of course. And that goes down to putting Yahusha first always. And as long as you maintain that orientation, and that's a good way to verify the friendship, the relationship. Is this friendship requiring me to put Yahusha second, third, fourth, God forbid, last place? God
Right.
forbid anything besides first place. Because if you're not in first, you're last.
Yeah.
So, and if the answer is yes, it's like, okay, then this friendship is no longer profitable to you and to them.
That is not something to pursue anymore.
You know what I mean? So, yeah, that was pretty good.
Yeah, I think it was a pretty good discussion.
Yeah, I
Out
think
of a
it was.
sudden, no nothing planned
Yeah,
beforehand.
yeah,
I
it
think
was
it was a
fun.
good topic.
Yeah, I don't even know what would we call that. We call that.
Um, I don't know. I think phases of the walk or how to deal with people. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. I'll figure some. We'll figure some out.
Yeah, you're good with
Um,
that stuff.
it was fun. It was good. It was good. All right, brother. Well, thanks for hanging out.
Yes,
Thanks for
sir.
uh,
Thank you for the talk.
thanks for partaking and sharing in your wisdom.
I mean,
Always
you too.
appreciated. Baruch Hashem Yahuwah.
Baruch Hashem Yahuwah. Now I need to swipe the floor because I made a mess installing that door.
We love you guys. Appreciate you. Make sure you subscribe, comment, like, share it. And we'll catch you
Shalom,
on the
y'all.
next one. Shalom, shalom.
Now, have a good one, whatever it is.
Later.